primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From the bright center of the galaxy, I'm Grex Kondak, and you're listening to Core World News, your whole-net news service providing in-depth coverage of the latest stories from every sector of the galaxy. Now for your news segment rundown for January 26, 2023. 99 problems, but a Bad Batch ain't one. Jeddah Jamboree. We now go live to the CWN newsroom to join your host Ben, Grant, and Adam for their review of the latest episode of Bad Batch.
All right, thank you very much, Grex. Welcome everyone to our inaugural stream, and welcome back everyone, our normal podcast listeners. It is great to talk to you again this week. Really exciting, two fun things to talk about this week. We'll start off with Bad Batch, and then talk about the audio drama Battle of Jedha, which is great. We've been building up to that for a while. Gentlemen, how are we doing today? You guys feeling all right out there in the galaxy?
Yeah, doing all right. Ready to talk some Star Wars. You know, hanging in there. Trying not to cough on mic.
There you go.
Yeah, wait to journey to Jeddah for the Season of Light later. But I'm can't wait to dig into Bad Batch. I've been loving this show so far. So.
Yeah, let's go. Let's start talking about it. This is episode 5.
Yeah.
Adam, I believe you put together a little summary for all of us to set the stage.
I do. So as you mentioned, Ben, this is episode 5, Entombed, and here's my summary. Wreck-It Ralph style, the Bad Batch start playing Tomb Raider and somehow end up in Horizon Zero Dawn.
Very good.
Would you like?
You get the award for shortest summary of the year.
Would you like my real summary now? I just had to get a little snarky there. Okay. During a routine scavenger mission, Omega and Wrecker find a compass that just might point to an ancient treasure, the Heart of the Mountain, a rare crystalline stone older than the Republic and the Jedi. Fee, our new professional treasure hunter or pirate, joins the gang on their quest. After arriving on Skara Nal, the tomb does not disappoint. It is full of secret entrances, puzzles, booby traps, and even a minotaur-like creature. During their spelunking, the gang gets separated, only to be quickly reunited, no worse for the wear. Upon finding and removing the heart, the Batch awakens an ancient mech war machine. They must find a way to deactivate it while battling the creature. Once they're able to plug the heart back in and toss the creature out a window, all's good. Even the droid we thought we lost can quickly be saved, thanks to a backup file.
Yay, backup files.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
I just want to mention I used
cool.
mech because in closed captioning, it referred to it as a mech.
Interesting. I mean, we're talking ancient technology there. This episode was wild.
It was.
What did it remind you of, like, vibes-wise? Because there was a lot going on in here, and it felt like a lot of different things.
Oh, it felt like a classic sort of like super weapon story for Star Wars, which is some of my favorite stories of all time. Obviously, the Death Star, and then they've done the Zilla Beast, obviously in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
There's so many episodes where you see these like super weapons or these super threats, and this was one of them. It was basically like a mech the size of 4 AT-ATs, and it had a giant beam that could fire like the Death Star.
Yeah.
Like pretty sweet design. Like the design's all like rounded edges. Like it just feels like sort of like Zepho like architecture and technology. And that's I think that's what that reminded me of the most. Really is like
Definitely got some
Fallen Order
vibes.
that game.
Yeah,
That was definitely one of the things I was like, say Zepho, say Zepho, say Zepho.
right.
The whole time.
I kept waiting for them. Yeah.
Yeah, for those that don't play, Fallen Order, that's the Zepho or a character or a whole.
But I don't know how you do some of those puzzles if you don't have a wrecker in the crew.
I know, right?
Exactly.
You know what
I was like, do they need
Yeah.
someone
I was
taller?
like, what? Like, is this like a puzzle just for like super strong?
Or if you're a
people?
Cal Kestis and you can use the Force to force shove.
Yeah, I guess it's the
right?
Force. I guess
pull.
those Force puzzles. Good call.
It reminded me so much, of Fallen Order because, and I made that kind of jokey video game thing, but it really felt like someone watching a video game when she had to look through the compass to see the light. It felt like a video game mechanic.
Oh yeah, and the compass pulsates
Yeah.
and like hums if you're like aiming it in the right direction.
right?
Yeah.
The other thing, like kind of deep pull, this really reminded me of from the old EU, and as I talked a bit off air, this might be because I am, deep in EU lore right now, of Center Point Station. Does anyone recall Center Point Station?
Yeah.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
That sounds like a major location from the EU.
Yeah, it was. So in the Corellian system, there was this mass, like about the size of a moon, that was called Center Point Station, and it was created by what they kind of refer to as the ancients, but they never knew. And my guess is this was going to be revealed if the old EU kept continuing, by something that came before any written or known history in the galaxy. And they found out that this thing actually moved all of the planets in the Corellian system. So it was this weird giant thing. But so it just reminded me of this kind of the time period in this episode of just like well before the Republic, well before the Jedi, like just there's this ancient race that had like these advanced technology. It's just really interesting lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely feels like sort of like the Amaxine station and the sort of stories that go with that location in the new canon as well.
Yeah, I took a look at all of the different things. Fee says a lot of interesting places and artifacts. She's telling, treasure hunting stories the whole episode. None of them directly tie back. I thought something would.
You caught some of these?
Yeah, I caught them all, and like there's nothing that ties back. Unfortunately, this is all first stuff, but that's good.
Wait, the Blade of Cicada 4 sounded so cool.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I need a story about that thing.
Yeah,
And, it's
like
that was not
it's
a
great.
thing.
It's great Star Wars name dropping, but I did the same thing. Like I had Wikipedia and other places open there. I'm like, this has to be a reference to something, but no.
The Grand Pearl of Novak. I think that's the first
right.
thing.
Even the Heart of the Mountain, I feel like I've heard before in Star Wars, but this was the first mention of it.
Adam, how badly did you want a mind harp of Sharu?
I kept waiting. I kept assuming one of the references was going to be from the Lando Calrissian Chronicles. I really did, but not so much.
Yeah, these stories definitely have that vibe.
Yeah, definitely. I got Lost vibes as well. The show Lost.
Good call.
Because it kind of spun on its head halfway through, and I was it was just kind of curious. I don't know. That's the way I was feeling last night. I watched it late night last night, and it was a blast. Any of you, when I'll just say it because this is what I was feeling. What were you thinking? What was going through your head when the Heart of the Mountain was being removed? Anything in particular? Were you guys making any guesses? Anything?
No.
Like a mantra, I was like, please don't be time travel. Please don't be time travel. Please don't be time travel.
Yeah. The lines glow sort of like the world between worlds and the Rebels.
Interesting. Yeah.
Final season of Rebels.
And then I guess I'll get to it early where we start honoring the actual animation and sound in this thing. But like when it does finally get removed, the Heart of the Mountain gets removed, it is like one of the most beautiful sequences. Like the mountain erupts and there's these crazy sound effects.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. It like, and my head exploded at the same time because that was not what I was actually expecting to happen, to see this giant mech monster, this giant tall neck, I don't know, for lack of something better to call it. Yeah, if you played Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, the Horizon Zero Dawn
Yeah.
the comparison is apt.
It's close anyways.
It looks like a dinosaur with just a triangular head.
Yeah.
Zepho.
You can see how it's like parallel thinking, right? You can see how two people would come up with that design. No, I agree. The animation's always amazing, and it was a different type of animation because of how bright it was. Like the Bad Batch usually doesn't have that brightness to it, and I really appreciate that. And the creature designs are great too. Like the creature design of whatever that Minotaur-like thing was pretty.
Yeah, the fang
pretty great.
Yeah, that was actually scary too. I was like, "Whoa, that thing's growling quite a bit."
Whoa, it is
calm
totally
down.
growling quite a bit.
Snarling.
Yeah,
in the shadows.
it was large, and but it's a good thing Wrecker's plot armor is a mile thick.
Migs Mayfield and Wrecker. Backdoor pilot.
I'd watch that
That'd
show.
be great. I'd watch that show for real. pretty
I wouldn't stand
fun
in line for that.
episode. I had no idea that was what we were gonna get. Do you think like any of this could have implications for the future? Are we gonna see that beast again, or this planet again, or anything? Or is it just a wild standalone?
Shaking
Just
my head.
standalone. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Just your basic standalone. I feel like this is what this show is shaping into, and I don't really recall. Like I remember the major beats of season 1, but I don't remember kind of how the episodes progressed. But I have a feeling they're taking like the old, like X-Files approach, where you just get like every few episodes you get a mythology episode, and then there's mostly just these standalone adventures, which I don't know. I kind of appreciate. I kind of forgot how much I missed that not every episode has to be like moving the plot forward for the characters.
Yeah, it's fun to have like an adventure show.
The motivations are also fascinating in this episode because it's like
we've got nothing better to do.
It's just like
we could use money.
Yeah, they just do this. They're just laying low, and they just decide Omega wants to do it, and then they just do it. And I'm like, would you just all jump into this mission? Like, is this realistic? But I guess there's money to be made. I don't know, treasure hunting, and that's not hurting anyone. So maybe that's something that they don't mind doing.
Yeah,
that's true. They're not mercenaries, right? For a change.
Fee's a good addition. Yeah. She's got some Dr. Aphra vibes going on. It's nice. Aphra can't be the only treasure hunter out there. It's nice to see some other people doing that.
Yeah.
Rad. It was a pretty fun thing. The other thing that sort of struck me and that made this kind of dark, this has been a pretty dark season overall, was so at the beginning of the episode, Omega finds this compass, this like key, Rosetta Stone, whatever, in the dashboard of a fallen ATTA, the gunship. Yeah, and it's kind of wild. But then when they land at this planet, which is the Fernar Trinary system. Sorry, give me a second here.
Are you talking about the Kaldor primary system?
Kaldor Trinary system. Yes.
Trinary.
So when they get there, it's razed. It's destroyed. It's been turned to glass.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, do you think maybe if they had finished their mission, or whoever had that thing got there in time, it might have saved the planet? Because it's like that's probably what that machine's for, is to like defend the planet on automatic pilot, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
And it's like whoopsie daisy.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because I was watching the episode, I was kind of like, well, like convenient, like they just happened to find this artifact that's related to this during a routine scavenger mission. But I like that larger pullout of like, why was this thing in there? And that's right on par, like for the course of what Filoni's laying down with this, right? Like it is showing how much the fall of the Republic was a tragedy for so many different things.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's super depressing.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Galaxy.
It's not just the Jedi, right? It's just so many people were horribly affected by this. Yeah.
Right. There's always that trope too of just like whoever achieves, a super weapon, the invention of a super weapon, their civilization's then wiped out. It's the sort of that's the karma of playing with these kind of devices.
I will say too, I kept the snarky moment about the droid because
Mel the droid.
Mel, because I like Mel. And then when the super weapon, when the mech started shooting at him, I was just like, well, like they're not going to kill the droid. And then they did. And I had just the night before watched the Banshees of whatever. No spoilers there. But I was kind of like, I was just kind of in a mode where I'm like, oh yeah, it's gutsy storytelling. They killed the droid.
No.
And then of course like there's a backup, and I'm like, nah. And I'm like, all right, but it's a kid show, so I'm like, it makes sense. But there's like the darkness in me was really happy that they went there.
They killed the Minotaur, which is bad enough, I guess.
Yeah,
that's the thing,
right?
Yeah.
That thing
I
wasn't
wanted
doing
to ask you
anything
guys if
wrong.
if,
It was
like
just-
I think it was hungry.
if
Yeah.
like Dave is like Dave Filoni is like write me a Bad Batch episode. Like where do you go? Like I don't know. It's like you can't kill people. Like they're a highly specified like
Yeah.
mercenary force. They're essentially the A-Team in Star Wars, right? And the A-Team kill people all the time.
Yeah.
But these guys, they can't kill people. They can't kill animals. Like at this point, maybe it's just me, but my tolerance for like animal cruelty is non-existent. And then even
Yeah.
even in fiction, and
Yeah,
and even
that's-
droids too. They're like it's sort of a
Well, there aren't really also many
Yeah.
droids left, right? Because it's post, so it is tough. It's really tough. I had a similar thought of like this. They're doing such a wonderful job with something that seems impossible in a lot of ways because we know that the clones are quickly going to be phased out, right? Which I love that they're telling that story this season.
if they
And
are.
that
You're
they
going ahead
are-
with this like this is definitely happening. But TBD.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. I think it should happen.
Yeah, we'll
it
see.
makes sense in timeline and stuff. It's a good guess, but I'm just wondering now if
I think it's a winnowing. I don't know that they're necessarily going to have their own
Right.
Order 66, but I feel like they're just
certainly
they're basically treating them like droids, right? They're putting them in the most dangerous and
Yeah.
frontline situations until none of them are left. And so it's just like they can't really be out and about. We know Jedi aren't really around at this time period, but they're like finding ways to tell really interesting stories with these characters.
Yeah.
What would I do? I don't know. Like I don't know what you would do with these characters, but I like what they're doing.
Do we think they might circle back to encountering another Jedi, much like how they started with Kanan?
Caleb Doom.
And then, like, it would be interesting to see, like, a Jedi operating post-Clone Wars with clones that got his back, or got her back, and, but it's like, it's just a ragtag outfit of Jedi and clone troopers post-Purge, post all this stuff, and they're sort of like Scarlet Pimpernel or, Batmaning around the galaxy, like, that could be fun.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think we called earlier, probably around Obi-Wan, that they could be maybe headed towards the path and helping the path. I think that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, the path. Like, I wouldn't even do the Luthen Rail's whole, like,
Yeah.
proto-rebellion. I wouldn't do any of that yet. I would just do, like, the path or,
Yep.
not even, maybe they're just like these Avengers, these sort of like, Caped Crusaders, these justice
Yeah.
seekers.
What's interesting is if we're gonna apply like Campbellian storytelling to this, they haven't even they're still kind of in the refusal of the call phase, or they haven't even gotten
Yep.
their call yet, right? Like we don't like they're got to be destined for bigger things than just trying to survive and keep out of the eye of the empire, right?
Working for
So, like,
2-bit hustlers.
when's that
and,
gonna
like,
happen?
treasure hunters, like they, and you
Yeah.
can see it in, I think, in Echo and Hunter and Tech. They just like, I mean, they look exhausted at the beginning of this episode, and they're just like another
Yeah.
stupid crusade.
Like, what are we doing?
So I
Yeah.
mean, that might have been the only note that's going to carry through to the next episodes, where they're just like they
good point.
feel the call
Yeah.
of duty. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they want to serve the galaxy.
Yeah, like Hunter is just so annoyed sitting there listening to Fee tell a story to two
Right.
like barflies. Yeah.
Which I wouldn't be. I would have been one of those barflies. Hopefully the Athorian one.
Yeah, I would have. Right? Yeah. No, Fee could tell me stories all day long.
Right on. Anything else in about this episode? I assume we'll get something a little more stern next week. But anything else about Bad Batch?
That's
Not really. I mean,
all I got.
Can't wait to see the next episode. I hope we get some more Crosshair again. I mean, that'd
Yeah.
be fun.
Too.
Yeah, we're gonna do.
I like the fact that I'm now to the point where I am not counting the days until Bad Batch, but every time I sit down to watch it, I'm happy and looking forward
Yeah.
to it. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a delight. It's an absolute
It
delight.
is a delight.
Yeah.
I've been sort of going back and rewatching the other ones, and they're great. But I've noticed that like this is there's so many iconic moments in this show that I don't forget a detail about these episodes when I'm watching them. So like to
Right,
watch fresh
right.
material is amazing. I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Nice.
All right, y'all. Well, now this is when we do a segment bumper, so stand by. Reading Wrath Talk. Reading Wrath Talk. Reading Wrath Talk.
Welcome back to our second installment of Jeddah Jamboree. This week we're covering George Mann's Battle of Jeddah, an audio drama. So we were thinking about making this a Reading Wrath Tower, but
I just played the Reading Wrath Tower bumper.
Jeddah Jamboree is just such a iconic
yeah.
title. We had to just keep going with this segment. So here's a summary. It's quite comprehensive. There's a lot of moving parts to this plot, so I tried to cover it all. But yeah, we'll just fight through it. And this is basically the story. So if you haven't read or if you haven't listened to the audio drama, I would just go listen to that, come back, because we're going to go full on spoilers. We're going to talk about all the characters in the piece. And it was awesome. And it's voice acted. There's brilliant voice actors doing all the voices in this script, and it's so good.
Yeah, music and sound design.
Yeah, so.
the whole deal.
Yeah.
Spoiler wall right here, and here is the summary for Battle of Jeddah. After the bloody conflict between Iram and Irano has been quelled and the heirs of both monarchs have been united in marriage, the Jedi Order invite representatives from each world to travel to the holy city of Jeddah to finalize a peace treaty that will end the forever war once and for all. Jedi Knights Crichton's son and Ada Forte are tasked to oversee the peace conference, but when a bomb explodes during the summit and mediator Morton Santeca is killed, the chase is on to find the bomber. Fellow knight Salandra Show and her newly acquainted friend and adjunct of the Church of the Force, Keth Carapath, join in the search for the culprit. Both Crichton and Show's investigation keeps pointing to the Path of the Open Hand, a sect of Force worshippers who believe nobody should control the Force. But the organization is known to be peaceful, and the Jedi can't find evidence that states otherwise. As more targeted attacks occur in the city, tensions begin to elevate. The herald of the Path of the Open Hand starts a riot wherein the mother releases her leveler to wreak havoc and stir chaos. When Tilson Graff of a famous frontier family steps in to be the mediator of another peace treaty, that too is sabotaged and war erupts between the armies of Iram and Irano, marking the beginning of the Battle of Jeddah. Hot on the trail of the mysterious assassin that attacked the second treaty signing, Salandra and Keth analyze P3's hololog and discover a brother of the Ninth Door is responsible for the second attack. As Crichton's son contacts the Jedi Council for reinforcements and Ada Forte fights off loader droids in the street, Salandra goes to confront this brother of the Ninth Door, whom we learn was hired to attack the ambassadors by none other than Tilson Graff. It turns out Tilson Graff and the mother, the leader of the Path of the Open Hand, are behind all the targeted attacks in the city. When Salandra enters the sanctum of the Brothers of the Ninth Gate and nearly loses in the battle of the deadly Darksider, Keth comes to her rescue but is gravely injured in the process and tragically dies in Salandra's arms. To ensure her role in the terror plot is unknown, the mother blasts Tilson Graff and makes for the Gaze Electric. Just as Crichton and Ada seem to be overwhelmed by the forces of Iram and Irano, reinforcements from the Republic arrive to aid in the fight. Banding together, the Jedi form an impenetrable shield of Force energy, and Crichton gives an inspirational speech that brings an end to the conflict. When the dust settles, Crichton and Ada return to Coruscant, convinced Tilson Graff was responsible for the attacks, given he was supplying enforcer droids to Iram. On Jeddah, Salandra shares the story of Keth's final adventure with his friends at his old haunt, the Enlightenment.
All right, well done, Grant. That is
Nice.
quite
Well
a rundown, comprehensive. It was about 5.5 hours of listening time. It was a good long story, and it really tied in the rest, all of the rest of phase 2 so far. We get little, either holo recordings and a lot of stuff from Convergence, and we hear about the heirs and Gela, who's was a big part of that book, and even makes a cameo and stuff. But it's mostly
my favorite character, Gela Natai.
Yeah.
I love that character.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And we get but we get a lot of Crichton's son. And his co-worker, Ada Forte, is in there a little bit. And we get a lot of Salandra Show.
Lot of Salandra.
Yeah. And she was really prominent in Quest for the Hidden City, which was the other George Mann donation to Phase 2 so far.
That's right. Yeah. With the catacoots, yeah.
Never forget the catacoots.
Space vampires. Yeah.
And Salandra great. She's got a shield, the old light shield. That's her thing, and we are the shield of people. It's a good metaphor. It makes her stand out. She was amazing in Quest for the Hidden City. Really showed off. She can like force control her shield, and then you get a lightsaber in there, and it's it's great. It's like a ray shield. It's pretty cool. So fascinating story here. A lot of interesting things going on. I know I'm not adding anything to this, but I did sort of immediately like Creighton's son because he sounds a lot like Obi-Wan Kenobi. It is.
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
100%. There's like a special British-ish, I'll say English accent that they use for Star Wars, and it's like not. I don't think it's from nowhere in Great Britain. It's from nowhere.
Languid gentleman.
Yeah, but they also have it. It's like it's a very regal, English, but it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, he's quite charming, and it seems like he can just turn that off and on, and he just kind of can hang out at these soirees and these gatherings and just either enjoy himself and take part in the affairs, or just kind of hang to the side and keep to himself. He enjoys his alone time, it seems, as well. So
can't help but like that guy. Unless of course you're counting on him to conduct a peace treaty signing.
Yeah, I was like, can we get this? I was like, how about we go to the beaches of Niamos? Like, can we not
go to
why are we going to the Holy City during the season of light?
Yeah.
I hope I mentioned that. I mean, they're doing this during the season of light, which is an age-old, basically day of observance for the Guardians of the Will, in which you kind of reflect upon yourself and meditate and whatnot. And then a new gang in town, a new group, the Convocation of the Force, are pegging their same sort of holiday, the Festival of Balance, in this same sort of period in Jedha's annual cycle.
So that brings up a really interesting point because Grant, I think you and I are reading the High Republic main run comic, Marvel comic.
Yes.
As it comes out, right?
Yes.
And so I think you and I are both
lots
at the
more
same
with
place.
the convocation in that comic.
Yeah, a lot more of the convocation. So I'm trying to figure out timeline. I think that comic takes place before the events of this, right? I don't think the Battle of Jedha has happened yet in the comic. Is that correct, you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good assumption because you would have seen signs of it. And I don't think there are any signs of it in the street.
I was trying to figure that stuff out because I was a little for some reason I assumed this was even more of a flashback, but it's enjoyable. I want to shout out Keth. I enjoy here's what I'll say is like I like a character that I feel like Keth is if there was a person if I was in a Star Wars, this is probably who I would be in Star Wars. I'm not a smuggler. I'm not a scoundrel. I don't have the Force. I'm not a droid.
Yeah.
But I get wrapped up into it, and I can't help but insert myself into it, and then I die because I'm not going to make it through alive. I'm not going to make it through the whole thing alive. So I was very on board for Keth. I identified
the Dome of Deliverance.
Yeah,
that's all
definitely.
Yeah,
and you've got your own stool at the local best local watering hole, and you sleep in and miss.
Yeah, you apparently drink every night.
Yeah. I mean,
no.
Whoopsie
yeah,
daisy.
but then a cricket guy sort of makes you pay up constantly.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to feel attacked. No, just kidding. No, but it's true. I enjoyed that. I enjoy that whenever so often they kind of have an every person character in a Star Wars. I enjoy that quite a bit.
I mean,
it was fun, but it was almost like we. What are you doing here in terms of helping the mediator? He died. That was your job to assist him. I don't know. You're kind of just
not everyone's good at their job.
Yeah. I don't know. You're be on the ball. Let's get this treaty done with. You just want this treaty as the listener. You just want the treaty to be signed and these planets, these worlds to get along, and they keep denying you in this audio drama. It's so much fun. Just the tension, how it just pulls apart throughout as you go on. But my favorite stuff was Slander Show and the Mother and sort of those confrontations, getting a lot more of the path of the open hand. And this time it wasn't just like the Force should be free. It was also like the Jedi are evil, like the Jedi are abusers of the Force and they control it and they bend it to their will, and like that's bad. And they're really sort of like, really a smear campaign against the Jedi in this book.
I feel like we're starting to see the connection between the Path of the Open Hand and the Nihil.
Yeah.
Like, right? I think we're starting to figure out how we get from point A to point B a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, lots more connective tissue. Strands are starting to form.
They drive me crazy. I mean, they're a good antagonist, the Path of the Open Hand and the Mother, because I hate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually the Mother has been more effective than the Nihil at this point, just given like how conniving she is and how duplicitous and sort of two-faced she's been. Like the two-facedness is power. It's like Palpatine level, sort of like.
I mean, not to get like too real, but basically we're telling a story of how a cult turns into a terrorist cell.
Through gaslighting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and like we're at the cult phase, and like for some reason, I find the cult stuff so much more infuriating than the Nihil, because I'm like the Nihil, I'm like, you put it on Front Street, like who you are and what you want.
I know they're like throwing poison
not,
gas at you and wearing like barbed helmets. It's like, okay, you're evil, I guess.
Right, I know. And so what we know from Phase 1 is sort of Marchion Ro starts awakening these old tenets of his sect, and it's like kill the Jedi, and mostly kill the Jedi, and cause
kill the Jedi using levelers.
Exactly, and doing those sort of things. Yeah, the path will be free. So I think that's probably where it's headed, is sort of like telling the motivations of Marchion as he starts his crusade, and he dusts off these old weapons and other old techniques that they had before. But it's just, I mean, I guess it's just the gaslighting and the blatant lying that I really wish.
Yeah, it's upsetting.
I really wish I could get a Jedi character to just who talks to the Mother, who gets a chance to talk to the Mother, and just absolutely dresses her down and be like, everything you're saying.
I mean, that's what Slender Show sort of does in this story.
She does. She comes very close to it.
She tries to, and then it's cut short, basically. And you're like, oh, I really wish she got to lay into the Mother a little more, which she does later. For a brief instance, later she does get to have an extended dialogue with the Mother. as the battle.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah. I mean, there's a line where it's like, "You believe I save your life so another person dies?" That's not how the Force works.
No. I want to get into this. If this book, if there truly is a sort of a meta layeredness to this story, could you track all the deaths in the story and sort of track, this person died, so this person died, and then and the Mother's ideology makes sense at all? Because it doesn't.
No, people are always dying, and people are always being born and getting saved.
And the Mother's.
I love how affected you are by this. I love it. Like, I don't think it's right, but there's it so makes sense why this would be an attractive or a believable thing. So here's the thing. The more I think about this, when you look at Phase 1 and you talk about the Nihil, it's just that I feel like when we're talking about the Nihil, it's just every person who's part of the Nihil, you could see their kind of evilness coming out, and they're yes, we just want to kill and rob and steal and do this and do that and be evil and give into our baser instincts, right? There's innocence that we've seen get wrapped up in it with especially in the High Republic Adventures comics from Phase 1. The Path of the Open Hand, every character we meet other than the Mother and her direct underlings seem like really good people who have been victimized and now are getting wrapped up in this thing because they believe in this, let's help everyone, the Force provides, and all this. So it is so much more upsetting because all of her underlings just seem like people who have been duped, right? It's just depressing.
Oh yeah, Marta Rose seems brainwashed, and then she's now brainwashing not Natty, the little, as they're called,
Peli
the littles. And I feel like Marta Rose's sort of fear of the Jedi is all from the mother, basically. And you really feel that brainwashing, I think, in Path of Deceit. And that's a great story in terms of really diving into the path of the open hand. But I gotta say, it's the Herald that takes the cake for me. I can't stand that guy. That guy is like the dark side, and the way he talks to Jedi is just like he's hiding a seething hatred for them or something. Like the way he deals with them and the way he bothers me quite a bit. And,
I'm glad we finally get to see the Herald be the Herald. Like, they have these titles. There's the
Right.
there's the elders and there's the mother, and her name's like Alicia, and like that's just kind of funny. She gets called by her first name a couple times by Tilson Graff, but the Herald actually he's a weapon that is designed to rabble rouse, and they unleash him when they want to do it, and that's just another weapon in their arsenal of mistruths and whatever. And so he can do that, and that's his gift.
He blamed the sorcerers of Tund, the Matsukai, the Jedi. He blamed like all the different sects of Force worshippers, and just like caused this massive riot. And I was like, oh, this guy's a super dangerous weapon. This guy's a huge problem, and basically the mother could deploy him anywhere. And I don't know really what his fate is at the end of this story. It's kind of like, it seems like a lot of people like jumped on him or something like that, and then like the Leveler was released, and it was just like pure chaos.
There was a couple lines at the very end of this book between Ada and Creighton that suggest he was captured. That he was.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I would love now, after we got a Herald scene, now we can do some sort of like interrogation stuff.
Yeah,
with him. That'd be great.
Let's get on the really real. And it's not clear to me that they were able to recapture the Leveler either.
Yeah, that was really the Leveler stuff was kind of
the Leveler went streaking
a little bit
and
in
then
this book. What was going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
and I guess Solandra Show saw
100%.
it but didn't see it or something. I was like, does it also blind you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember from phase 1, they kind of established that for some reason the Jedi really can't, Force users can't see it really, right? Like it clouds their vision, clouds their ability to see it. Which is why I think we've only just in the past few months ourselves have gotten a chance to see what it looks like. Like they've really held back on showing what it looks like. The other thing kind of we were talking about, I want to shout out all the names of the different sects that they've used in these tellings. Like I think we were off air talking about this, but the Nine Hands, the Path of the
Brothers of the Ninth Door.
The Brothers of the Ninth Door.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's
it's
just
super
wonderful.
fun. And it's like, I can't tell if it's a bunch of people talking at the same time, like a hive mind, or if everyone's voice sounds like three voices. But it was cool.
I don't know. Good audio.
Yeah, it was fun new audio design. A lot of the audio design was just sort of like airlifted from the original trilogy. And the scores were sort of handpicked out of, all of the trilogies a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, it sounds like a bunch of TIE fighters. Don't worry about it. That's what the Irem and Aerono fighters sound like. But it sounds cool, right? And you're like, sure does. Thank you.
Sure does. I'm very used to that because I've been what I found is, as I've been working my way through the old EU, I mostly had the read, but then I found my library for some reason has all of the Fate of the Jedi books in audiobooks, and weirdly, they're all available.
Yeah.
No one's taking them out. So I just downloaded all 9 to my phone. So I've been like cranking through them while I've been packing up my house and doing tons of stuff. So I've gotten through like 5 books in like 5 days. It's wild. But I'm so used to that like recycled audio and music cues that I don't even notice anymore. It's just like I'm just like, Star Wars. Like it's great.
Yeah, someone made that decision.
The Brothers of the Ninth Door are now added to the list. The other sort of sects are the Sorcerers of Tund, the Fallen Nasi, the Yakambi Envoy, the Lonto, the Guardians of the Wills, the Matukai, the Path of the Open Hand, and the Church of the Force. These are all separate organizations, I believe.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I think you're right. I love that the Guardians of the Wills can be like activated. They're like they feel like the National Guard of the Jedi, right? Like they can be activated by the Jedi. That was kind of
surprising to me. I thought they were sort of this autonomous thing, and maybe they are, but they just chose to work with the Jedi. Maybe they just have a stronger affiliation with the Jedi than the other sects. Yeah, they didn't get a lot of lines in here, but they were very present through most of the.
I did like Misuk, that character. I think he even tells Salandra at one point, he's like, there are some who feel ambivalent about the Jedi. It's like a wonderful exchange where she's just like, oh yeah, it's good that people feel ambivalent about the Jedi. It keeps us humble. And it's just a really fun exchange and sort of like hinting at the path of the open hand and, sort of these other sects that sort of disagree and sort of outwardly dislike the Jedi.
Yeah. Guys, I can't believe we've buried the lead on this story because
the Herald going full Bane?
No, if you want to go full Bane, do that now because I'm about to go to the P to the 3.
No. What's the lead here?
Go. Yeah, I know, right? I can't believe we got this far
Probably the greatest donation of this story to Star Wars is the droid P3. Do either of you guys want to explain what P3 is for the listeners that haven't watched the book? It's amazing. I mean, I guess I've started it. So
P3 is like imagine a droid that can get spiritual and speak in epithets because that's what this droid does.
But can only
epithets, should I say? But it's basically cobbled together from like pieces of droids from the Church of the Force, like a processional droid, other droids, and it's sort of an ad hoc modded droid, right? It's not like a
it sounded like the processional droids are just like orbs, and then he put on like probe droid arms so it could actually like touch things, which is creepy, and then they just bolted a head on the top of it.
It sounds super creepy.
And I'm pretty sure it's a droid head, but I don't think it articulates. It's like a dead head strapped to the top of this glowing orb, and it only speaks in religious epithets. And they sort of like when you start, you're like, that thing is creepy. It is the villain, and they even sort of lean into that a little bit. And then, but then as you go, like you start to be able to decipher what he's actually saying. And you're like, oh no, he's not doing this to be annoying. It's the only stuff he can say. And then by the time you get to the end of the story, you can understand him. And I mean, it's pretty obvious, but it's not obvious at the beginning of the book because you've never run into anything like this before. So it was a real joy. That was definitely my favorite character. It's I think he might have beat Geode for my favorite character.
Also, did he see the leveler?
Really far up there.
Did he see the leveler, and is it also in his holologs?
That was the thing is like I don't understand why Salandra wouldn't have left with P3. I mean, he's the greatest character, and now he's just going to hover around a bar for a while? He doesn't even have a job. He doesn't have an owner. That's one of the.
Especially because Salandra and P3 seem to have a connection. Because like my favorite thing is that like she seemed to instantaneously understand what P3 was saying, right? Like she spoke P3's
halfway through the book, if you hadn't figured out how he's talking, Salandra, when she meets him, spells it out for you, which is fun. It's like a George Martin sort of, R.R. Martin sort of deal. But yeah, so much joy around that. And
there's great quotes in there too.
Yeah.
It takes time to understand one place in the galaxy. Let patience be your guide.
You got quote pulls from him?
We must see ourselves in the light of the Force to know who we truly are. Like he's just like the spiritual droid throughout the piece.
Yeah.
And it's
who I don't know if we mentioned, but is basically Keth's droid, who Keth cannot for the life of him understand what P3 is saying, which is like
that's not true. He figures it. He figures it out.
He figures it out about 2/3 of the way through, like pretty close to his death, and I think P3 says P3's line is something like, and finally the one reaches enlightenment or something. I can't remember what the line is, but it's just like it's so great. It's such a great moment where I'm like,
yeah, that's pretty good.
What a fun droid.
Yeah. Another like major thing is that we see the statue. If we go back to Rogue One,
the Protector,
where we see the statue crumble. Right, we actually see what caused that in the downed statue. I mean, it's monolith, like what? It's larger than a statue.
It's a giant statue, and it's the one we see laying on the ground, presumably in Rogue One.
Yeah.
And we also know why there aren't many Guardians of the Whills by Rogue One also, because they took a hit.
Yeah.
And that statue is supposed to be like one of the most ancient depictions of a Jedi, basically.
Yeah.
Like it's quite old, that statue. So
I know they were pretty bummed about that whole thing. There was, I forgot who had said it, but they said essentially like without the statue of the protector, we are just thugs fighting in the streets. Like that sort of lent credence to the Jedi as being the major power there. I mean, that was one of the things I sort of fought with my whole time. It really makes you wonder. It's like, well, there's all these other Force using sects, believers in so many different ways. It's like, why should they respect the Jedi? Like I wanted something to sort of separate them and or some lines just to talk about like why the Jedi do stand a cut above the rest, or for something else. And I don't know. Is it the lightsabers? Like, is it the combat? Like, I don't know. Is it the fact that they are generally good and are fighting for the light? And even here, they say they're nonpartisan, but then they're like, nope, we're on the side of the people, so we need to start defending them, even if we're only fighting one side of this war. And
this is going to sound so cynical, but is it because they have weapons and they're also willing to intervene when the other sects seem like they're more interested in philosophy and less in action, and Jedi are more interested in action? That's
the best thing I've heard so far, actually. I think that's probably it. They're willing. I don't think that's cynical at all. They're like, we're not willing to stand by and watch the galaxy get hurt and people get hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a line that Ada Forte says, like towards the end. There's this wonderful banter between Crichton's son and Ada throughout the book, which is that Ada is this optimist and just offers hope just when in the darkest hour, like throughout the book, basically, or throughout the audio drama. And Crichton's just in wonder that she can be an optimist at times. And then at one point she says, fighting for peace hurts. Oh, he says, every time we fight for peace, it always ends in like calamity or disaster. Yeah. He says something to that effect. And she says, fighting for peace, I think fighting for peace hurts because it's worthwhile and precious. And I was like, to me, that's what a Jedi is. It's someone fighting for peace, and like just to attain that, they'll do whatever they have to. So if they have to wield a lightsaber, if they have to use the Force, if they have to bend the Force, they're going to do it just to attain that state of peace. And so Ada Forte felt like the most Jedi out of all these characters in the book, in the drama.
I wasn't really impressed with a lot of the Jedi there. I think the Leveler is so overpowered and just like OP.
Yeah, we got to figure out this whole like Scooby-Doo Leveler thing where it's like it's sneaking out and then it disappears. And
but I think like
Jedi have
what did it do? Where did it go?
Right, just the fact that it was on the planet. I mean, I think that's why, because there was times when Crichton was like, "Why didn't I sense the bomb like earlier behind the door or whatever?"
Right.
And, and it's like, and I would say it's probably because what we know is it's the Leveler does that. Even if you're anywhere in the proximity, it lessens your connection to the Force. Which I don't know. I mean, who knows where the story's going to go? They might be like, you know what, the path of the
But
open
it's kind of like this Hound of Baskerville thing. That's just like on a loop. Like I needed to now evolve to something else.
Yeah.
Like maybe they go and seek a Sith holocron, and then they sort of kneel to this holocron. And you're like, these creatures belong to a Sith Lord, and that's why everyone's frozen on Malachor. Like all these tie-ins, like really not feeling afraid to break the lore, or basically like add on piles and piles of new lore, like not being afraid to really expand the canon instead of expand the galaxy, because we can expand the galaxy all day and just do a new planet, the new civilization, but like it's fun when you actually hitch on to the timeline of kind of the larger events.
I'll say, Grant, like I feel like that's a interesting and good critique, because it made me think of like, I had that realization of like, I remember when first meeting the Leveler, I felt nervous and unsettled about what was going to happen, and then when Leveler shows up again in this thing, I'm like, well, here we go again. Like that's kind of where I'm at with the Leveler, which I'm like, it's a great thing. Like it's super creative, and it is something different and nothing we've seen before in Star Wars, but we need to move it forward now.
Let's just evolve this circumstance.
But because we talked a bit about this maybe off air, I think, but I have a feeling because we've moved back in time, because we're telling a prequel story, it's going to be hard to evolve that story, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe wait till phase 3.
They eventually get frozen in the ice on this other planet and something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to. I had some theories where I'm like, they could actually, like, I think the path is going to be defeated, and then out of it spurns the Nihil, the sort of spurn people. Probably Marta will then, like, she'll double down on her hate for the Jedi or whatever, even though she loved one at one point. And the Santekas will come into play. I think, we'll see Mari Santeka at some point.
Right, right.
But the levelers just, I mean... The levelers just like owned the Jedi so hard in phase 1.
How did Solander's show survive? Like, I was so confused by that.
Well, it's tough to tell in an audio drama. It was
satiated with what it ate a few people and then it was good and left.
I don't think she was close enough to it. Like, she was closing in on it, and then she was pulled away by P3. Again, amazing droid.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was saved by that, thank goodness. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, so this is one of my things is, like, this is supposed to be the High Republic, but maybe the Republic is at its peak, but the Jedi are like lazy, they're flirty, which I do like, actually.
Super flirty.
Yeah, I mean, Creighton is, I had notes.
I mean, I would say they're downright like horny. But
they're
I'll
horny.
Just say that,
Jedi
which I think we can get away with. I don't think we'll get an E rating for using that word. But I will say, just to bring it back to the leveler for a second, because I have like a super nerdy nomenclature observation about the leveler, where it's like, to me, I always read that as it levels the playing field, which is like one way to reason that is like it equals.
Yeah.
But also to level something also needs to wipe it out and bring it down to flat. So I just realized, I'm like, oh, that's what that means. It's not the leveler is like equal the playing field. It means to just raise it, right?
It's going to level the Jedi down to nothing.
Yeah, and
the
mother even says, the Herald says the Force will be free, and the mother says the Force will be leveled at one point.
Yeah, I don't think it means equaled. I think she means destroyed.
Yeah. Just her using that word was just like, ooh, trigger. Like,
but she definitely is a Force user. So that's why it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I see. There's something I'm sensing here where it's like she has a connection to these levelers or something.
Right? Because didn't she get like some grayscale on her arm when?
Yeah, she has like a gray hair or something, like a streak or something.
I thought like one of her hands might have like turned gray, or a part of her
something.
Arm.
Yeah, I remember something like that. This all has to turn out that one of these characters is like a Sith Lord, right? That's just working behind the scenes. Like, that's my theory, is that we actually are dealing with the rule of 2 right now, and we just have an unnamed Sith or apprentice who's doing all of this.
Really? Like someone above the mother?
Yeah, or the mother herself is basically. I mean, think about it. We had Darth Sidious, who was also Emperor Palpatine at some point, right? Like, they often have taken on multiple roles. So if their underground plan is to create a cult the goal is to destroy the Jedi, like, this could be a different way the Sith have tried to get at it without coming out from underneath the shadows, right?
Yeah,
beneath the Emperor from the shadows.
That's interesting. Yeah, and so maybe she's only has a very little power in the Force, but she's still able to command power. Just through these artifacts, right? We know that's how she's sort of done it. She also, there's some charm to her as well that, like, it was a lot more apparent in Convergence. Yeah. But not Convergence, I'm so sorry. Path of Deceit. But yeah, everyone who comes in contact with her kind of falls in love with her if they don't use the Force. There's definitely some dark side stuff going on there that's yet to come out, I think. And it just makes sense to like call her out as a charlatan. There's just something. It's like the path of the open hand. They stand on their soapboxes and they spout lies. And there's something about that, I don't know why, that just like sort of triggers me.
Why?
And so I'd love to see it, at least in this fiction.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't see any parallels to today at all. I don't know what could possibly be upsetting about that.
Right. Not on this space station floating around the core of the galaxy.
Yeah. It's not like they're going to, rouse up enough people to, I don't know, storm the Jedi Temple.
Yeah. Yeah. Good times. And so I'm kind of I would just like, I like Jedi. I like them doing amazing things, awe-inspiring things, and I don't know. There were some action beats in the story. They were a little hard to follow because it's audio only, and it's hard to like really depict what's happening. Well, someone's like, "Oh no, are you going to throw that droid into that starship?" And then
yeah, I mean,
like,
so
okay.
let's pause there for a second because I think that's a good thing to point out to our listeners if they haven't listened to this. It's like this is not just an audiobook, right? If you listen to an audiobook, it's just someone reading the actual audiobook, and a book has a lot of like non-dialogue set pieces. This is if you were listening to an audio drama from the 1920s or 30s where radio, everything is dialogue. And I was weirdly just talking to my wife about this a couple days ago before I listened to this. Like, as a nerdy teenager in the 90s, I used to get Dragnet, the Dragnet radio show from the 1940s and 50s on CD and listen to it to go to sleep. And so I am well versed in this awkward, clunky.
Are you saying you listened to podcasts before they were cool?
Yeah, I was totally into podcasts before they were cool. But it's just, it's something you have to get really used to because you have to do so much clunky exposition because you can't have, everything has to be heard. Like everything is literally like you hear it diegetically, right? It's not like internal monologues or anything like that. And it's, it took me a while in this book, in this audio drama to get
you're getting
over
into
that.
the nitty gritty of like the history of the Church of the Force and who, which maester is on which station on which planet.
A lot of like what Ben was saying, like, are you telling me that yada 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 yada, or like I can't believe that just happened, and explaining in minute detail what that was, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a little. It's a little limiting at times.
Yeah, just it's like constant logistics. It's like, oh, they're flying here, and then they'll arrive here, and then we'll be here, and we'll meet them there, and then they'll arrive, and then we'll then see them when they get there. And I'm like, what?
There was a lot of fully explained subtext, and because it's like there's a lot of like defining why the Jedi are doing what they're doing and why it's right.
Yeah,
like in case this wasn't clear. This is how you get around that stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. But yeah, it was an interesting story. It's, I mean, I guess going to be kind of a centerpiece until we get to the next novel, in the High Republic. I can't wait to catch up on the comics because I know they're right here too.
Comics are fantastic.
Hopefully
I'm really
that will climax.
There's the High Republic, the Blade.
There's a Jedi Master who's a tigress, and it's I think Master Lieben. It's she's probably my favorite Jedi.
Yeah, and there are currently 4.
She's a liger.
Yeah, liger. Yeah. There are currently
dude, that's the next
4. Yeah,
incredible aesthetic.
I think 4 ongoing comics that deal in the High Republic, right? Because there's the High Republic main run, High Republic the Blade, the Yoda series takes place during the High Republic. And
has
then
that started already?
It has. Wow. Check it out. It's really
Yoda's
good.
Great. Blade, I just picked up number 1 of the Blade.
The Blade really
I would give my left Leku for a replica of Porter Engle's lightsaber. I would, like, honestly.
It's going to be made.
The coolest hilt, hands down.
I mean, and if you want to watch some Jedi getting some W's so far.
Yeah, some dubs.
I need to see some Jedi get some dubs.
Porter Engle, no L's taken.
No, it's true.
Just dubs.
Amazing lightsaber.
And he eats well after fights.
Eats well and
deflects. Right. He's an amazing cook. Wow, this is totally. I mean, is this the greatest Jedi of all time?
Eating well and sword fighting. Can you get better?
Yeah. Best lightsaber hilt. Oh.
And then Dark Horse is doing the High Republic adventures.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know if they're calling it that, but yeah. So
let's cover like 5 of those when they get.
They're all going to end their run pretty close together, so we might have to do just like a gigantic.
But I do think things are happening there that are pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Always
in terms of the
time. What I love about the High Republic stuff, like they're really taking this seriously. Like this is a weird moment where this book, or this audio drama, I'm trying to figure out what percentage of Star Wars fans actually listen to this, and I feel it might be like the 3 of us. And I'm just saying that kind of jokingly, and I don't mean that like
and all of our listeners, of course. Even though I know Jason only
like,
listens to us to get his High Republic info.
I mean, he also might be.
I thought this was going to garner more sort of like motion graphic, advertising and sort of like the Battle of Jedha is coming. Like I really thought there was going to be sort of a hype.
we know the High
for
Republic's
this.
doing quite well for them. Like the book sales are great. The comic sales are great. So there might be enough people doing this, but it seems like it's a niche thing. And my point is to actually do some really important plot points in this niche thing is kind of amazing. Like they're not pulling punches of like this, because I feel like what was the other one? The other one was Tempest Runner. That was the one they did.
Yeah.
Which also had some stuff, but I don't feel like it was as significant plot-wise as this one was.
Right, because it was more about centered on Lorna D, just like one
Lorna
character.
D getting, which I enjoyed, but like this one, like major things happen. I mean, the other bummer of this audiobook, and man, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I always want to say this audiobook's a bummer, right? Like it's a bummer of a book, and not because it's bad, but just because like a lot of bad things happen.
Yeah.
But we have the
so many
Iram
L's.
and I can never pronounce the names. It's Iram and
Iram and Arano.
Yeah,
Arano. We had just finished the book where the prince and princess basically married. Like they're fine, everything's great.
Yeah.
We have it, and then we get this book and like, and then and the second they're like, oh, the peace treaty's happening. And it's called the Battle of Jeddah. I'm like, oh man, like of course they're gonna get into a war.
This kind of Rise of Skywalker convergence.
Yeah.
Like it kind of just undoes everything that book does, and I was like, oh, now we have to like get back to Ziri and Fantuzen, and they have to like solve this, the dispute between the two worlds again. And I'm like, we just did that though. Like, it almost now needs to be like a secondary plot point that like after other things go well, it's like, oh, then they eventually sign that peace treaty, and it's sort of like mentioned or remarked upon, rather than like another book that deals with like those planets coming together. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Zoraida Cordova writes a sequel to Convergence, and that's basically the kind of like. But again, it would be the same. It would retread a lot of the same ground, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the next. I forget. There's another novel that's going to put a punctuation mark on this, and I'm forgetting the title of it now. But it's whatever, a Catalyst, right? Convergence, then Catalyst.
Hey, that sounds right.
Yeah. So then we'll see something else there. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, maybe phase 2 will culminate in this.
I wasn't super satisfied by the ending in this audio drama. I was kind of left wanting. I was just perplexed that sort of like Iram and Arano just fled back to their their sector, their system. And I guess I launched a new campaign against each other. I mean, essentially, like, it was just kind of like, it felt like that was a major cliffhanger. And almost like Crichton, I can't imagine Crichton Sun would just go and meditate after that instead of wanting to go solve that issue or something.
Bro. Oh, my God. So that was the thing. So, like, Crichton Sun, love the guy. Good times. He's fun. He left that thing after, like, you could not have done a worse job at signing a peace treaty. Like, and then he has to call in reinforcements. The reinforcements come. They sort of clear out the rabble. And they're just like, you know what? Don't worry about it, Creighton. You did a great job, buddy. You did a great job, man. You were so, you know what? You did the best you could, and that's all that matters. And you gave that great speech. There is a monster monologue on the end, and you're like, that allegedly just like turns the tide of the battle. Like he fought with words, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. He gets a lot of slack. Apparently, Jedi get a lot of slack in this era because I don't know. And it was
A for effort.
Really? Yeah, an A for effort indeed. A participation trophy? Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And he doesn't feel bad about it at all. He's like, well, anyways, I got a library to go to or whatever.
Failed peace
They're
treaty,
missing me at my favorite bar on Coruscant, and it feels good to be home. And I'm like, oh my God.
Does he decline those refreshments?
Oh,
at the
no,
end?
he does not. He's like, I could go for a drink.
One? Yeah, he's just like,
I do like the fact that they, like, as they talked about, they are Super Randy, and they drink.
Yeah.
the
Oh,
Jedi
yeah.
In this era.
No, they all have very fond words for each other, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
I imagine he just took his his holo tablet and just like with the case on it and just like threw it in the trash and just like walked outside and just like
You're right.
drank some
Had a
monk
had
jar
an
juice?
Atom-sized cocktail.
I think that's a drop in this.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I think is interesting is that Arano. How long has this war been going on? Because I think it says like 5
Yeah,
years.
Over 5 years,
Yeah.
but it's also been labeled the Forever
War.
I think
I mean, I don't know. Like, as a country who was in a forever war
Right.
for like 20 years, I'm just like 5 years. That ain't nothing.
Right.
Like, but anyway.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like they could have made it go. Yeah. They're like, it's the forever war. I'm like, okay, in the galaxy, it could literally be a forever war.
I think
you
in
know?
Convergence they do allude to
That's-
the conflict being like, far older than 5
Yeah,
years.
maybe they had maybe this has been 5 years of like an active war in terms of like
active,
but it's been a cold war for generations or for like
Exactly,
whatever.
yeah.
Because
I think
I'm with you,
I think
Ben.
that's it.
Like when I heard Forever War, when I read or listened to the first thing, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like they're gonna tell us this war's they've been at war for 1,000 years. Like
Yeah.
I thought that's what we were gonna get, and then it's like 5 years. I'm like, really?
I also thought the mediator was just being nice, though. He was like trying to he was just trying to soften it a little bit.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
they've been at war for over 5 years.
over 5 years. I mean,
it
technically,
turns
1,000
out.
years is over 5 years. So
Right. Hey, help me unravel this mystery. So this is the major plot point of the story, right? So, Tilson Graff was hired by the Path of the Open Hand to disrupt.
I believe
this.
so.
This is all
And-
said extremely quickly with the mother and
he
Tilson Graff, have their
and he
theme music.
subcontracts the Brothers of the Ninth Door to essentially do most of the dirty work.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I've got that right.
correct.
And
Yeah.
the Brothers of the Ninth Door are like the faceless men from Game of Thrones. They can
Yeah.
shapeshift. Their faces.
Oh yeah,
Force.
totally. Good call.
Cloud people's minds. It was alluding to sort of Palpatine clouding the Jedi. It was like the Brothers of the Ninth
Yeah.
Door sort of used the dark side to cloud
Yeah.
people's minds in terms of what they and how they
All right.
perceive
So
them.
that's it. And then the other big thing was, we already talked about it, but there was a great exposition on the end between the mother, Alicia is her first name. So if you're feeling, familiar
For trivia night.
yeah, for trivia night, that's a good trivia night. Call us if they're asking. that
We
question
will
at your
do High
trivia.
Republic trivia at the end of this phase. I think the
I
ending
like
of each
that.
phase
Yeah.
we'll do big
High
There you
Republic
go.
trivia. That's a
night.
great idea. That would be fun. And then if we do it
I will
live,
do so
people
bad,
can
even
chime
though I'm
in.
really enjoying it.
We can give people
Oh, yeah.
a live opportunity to chime. That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll send you a Black Series figure.
Yeah.
Ooh,
We
I
can
like
do that.
We can do that.
Oh, I was at a local
That's one thing we can
big
do
box
actually
store
at any
today,
time. Yeah.
and they had a retro Boba Fett one.
How
and I
retro?
couldn't-
White or like just
Not that retro, but like original
ESB.
Kenner ESB, but like blown up. And I was just like, I almost bought it, and then I couldn't justify what they were charging for it with what we're
Yeah.
financially doing right now as a family. So I was just like, I'm like, I walked by and I'm like, why did I go down that road? Why did I go down that aisle? I did not
What
have
have
to
you
go down
learned?
that aisle. That was a decision.
Yeah. There's a lot of good swag
Bad,
out there.
bad.
My one social media vice is Reddit, and I've started subbing High Republic. They have their own thing, and that's a fascinating
nice.
sub because everyone's talking about everything that's happened, and they're so in tune with it, and it's awesome.
Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, check it out. It's fun. That's a very cool sub. And then I also do our lightsabers because I'm just interested in it, and it's like people are way down that rabbit hole. But Grant, good news. A lot of people are making High Republic sabers. So Porter Engel's saber could be in the works. Somewhere someone is working on that design, I guarantee you.
Actually, yeah, it'd be nice to get like the actual saber as the blade as well.
I'm gonna.
That one.
So I will probably be at Galaxy's Edge in a little less than a month. I'm gonna wander into I can't think of the name of it now.
Savi's lightsaber.
So, yeah. Oh well, that one you have to go in. You have to have a
Doc Gondor's
Doc
Den
Gondor's
of
Den of
Antiquities.
Antiquities.
All right.
I'm so mad at myself. I'm gonna wander in there. I'm not gonna buy anything, but I'm gonna wander in there and see if in the High Rollers case at the front, if they don't have a little bit of High Republic.
Please,
swag.
Please do
on.
some research.
I will report back.
Yeah, I do like Crichton Sun's lightsaber. I think you see it and
on the cover.
The album art for this audio drama.
It's really good.
It's got the cross guard. It's
yet
OG.
another crossguard saber, which is awesome. And and then you see Ada Fortes on there too.
Yep.
Another Nikto, which is cool.
Right.
Yeah. Crichton Sun, pretty cool character. But I don't know. I feel like maybe they should hold that guy to a higher standard. I don't know. Higher Republic standard.
But I think my favorite thing in this phase so far is the Blade comic, Portering with Blade.
Yeah, it's really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Like it has really fun characters. There's a new character who accompanies Porter, who I just love.
Yeah.
Yeah, his quote unquote sister.
Yeah, I forget her name.
Yeah, I do.
She's
as
like
well.
green eyes.
The Yoda's really good. I'm really enjoying what they're doing with Yoda. All of the areas of this, I think, are really, they're taking swings, which I appreciate, and they're doing some interesting things, and it is all tying in. But again, I am always so fascinated by, as a person who will consume everything they produce, when I try to sit back and realize, like, oh, you could just read the High Republic comic and get like a satisfying story.
Yeah.
Right? You could just read the mainline adult novels in it and get a satisfying story. Like they're doing such a good job of that, of allowing people to kind of pick and choose.
Yeah, it's great. They've done a fine job. I think like the theme of this, I was on StarWars.com today, and they said it's like the balance of peace was the theme of all of this. So it's sort of like how hard peace is to maintain in a large galaxy. So it's a great thing.
And I think was it Master Tall or one of the Grand Masters or Jedi Masters says like an ill wind is about to like blow like in the galaxy or something. You know what I mean? Like ill-fated wind or something is coming or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is something huge is coming in these stories, and they're definitely alluding to some major event.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is probably the midpoint of the phase, so I think things are going to happen more rapidly. So, really looking forward to all the new stuff that's coming out here. A lot of fun characters to wrap your heads around, and a fun world to be in. Jedha's great, and there's a lot of stuff there. All the things I've ever wanted. Just a lot of different Force users doing weird things with the Force. So, fun times. I think we covered it for this week, y'all. This was super fun. Have a great time. We'll talk to you next week. We're going to do this live again. It'll probably be on Thursday. We don't know. We'll figure it out. We might even tell you about it next week so that people can actually watch us. But we wanted to make sure we could actually technically do this, which we failed miserably at last week. So now that this has been somewhat of a success, we're going to keep going because it's not that much different from what we usually do. We just do our podcast. But it's, now you can look at us if for whatever reason you want to do that and take part in the conversation, which we would love.
Yeah.
So do it. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll talk to you next week. And as always, may the Force be with you.
This is Grex Kondak signing off. For the latest breaking news, follow @CoreWorldNews on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you and good night.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.